filming this out of doors with a new phone, kind of going into a wooded area here. I've got my walking stick with, and again, I like to have the little bells on it. There's a hole for making a trap on it. Little jingle bells with buckskin tassels around the dog bane lanyard. And I like this just so even in the city, people hear me coming, especially out in the deep woods, critters hear me coming. So I recommend a noisemaker, unless you're really trying to be on the stealth mode, but then you got to be mindful of what it is you might come across. You might spook each other or something like that. Anyways, I think I'm just taking a quick minute to say, okay, so it's a kind of a muddy day because obviously there's no snow here in Minnesota right now. It almost feels like early spring, early May, but it's like early February. And we see some tracks, and this is a hill of a trail that's just adjacent to, this is a wooded area in a city, right? But, it's an opportunity to observe two things. A, how to use a walking stick on a muddy trail, and then B, I'm just observing the tracks, right? And there's plenty of tracks. People, and some of them are very, very, very fresh. I mean, I've been seeing people in the area, and I can see, these are fresh, muddy tracks. We're talking within the last hour or so, right? Some even earlier later than that or earlier than that. And people are slip sliding up the slope. I can tell that looks like a track going down the slope. There are tracks going, and again, I'm using I'm at dusk, so the light is hidden differently. But here's a big old mud pod, and there's dog tracks, there's animal tracks, there's hiker shoes, there's hiker boots. Obviously, this is a definite track. I think that's I don't know. That might be a little kid or a woman. There's plenty of dog tracks here, and people walking their dogs through the trail. And these are quite recent, right? And then you could track a particular person by the imprint. You can find the imprint, find their gait, which is like how long their stride is, whether they're running or walking. Maybe even they have a dog pulling them, and you can track the next step. So from this angle, the sun is more or less to the back of me. I can recognize, and now you can really see the tracks, right? You really see the tracks, and people are sliding in and sliding out. They just want to follow the trail. Me, myself, and I ain't trying to follow the trail like that. A, maybe because I don't want to get tracked. B, I don't want to slip slide and make myself all muddy and wet, right? It's still wintertime, so getting wet is just, ugh. It's cold, right? So on a trail like this, it's leading that way. I take my walking stick, right? And this one, because I use it for the inner city use, I have a rubber stopper on there. You can get it any, CVS or Walgreens or whatever, and just fit it on there. And what I do is I hop from one side, but this is my third leg, so I can take a step and post to the other side while I set my stick and get balance and walk over to the opposite side. All right, and depending on what terrain is going on this side, now I can switch and kind of do the same thing. Right? I hope this is coming across, because I'm using one hand doing this, right? And then I might end up with my butt. You never know, right? But this is how you can kind of safely traverse a slippery slope going downhill. But I have my walking stick, my third leg, and I might even straddle for a time if it's important, right? Or I can just stick on one side, right? Now, I just left a trail. So anybody really good at tracking would see that as like, okay, somebody's walking around with a pole or a stick or a walking stick. In the wintertime, or rather when there's snow on the ground, it's really easy to see. You can see people use their ski poles or hiking sticks easily, right? But this is just, a third leg, a third rail. As far as walking is concerned, is a real good idea, as it keeps you from losing your bearing. And if you do slip, at least you have something that might be planted that you can pull yourself up off of and keep you from sliding and getting too muddy, getting too icky, right? So you use your walking stick, as a probe and as a balancer. Right now we're coming up on a trail that's got a little bit more moss, and mind you, in my region we should be under snow right now. This would be an easy tracking trail because there would be a lot of traffic going on. But right now that I'm just using this opportunity to show, and again, I'm leaving sign. Oops, that was a slip. See, it's not always accountable, but I'm posting this outside of my weight, so my weight is pushing away from myself versus being underneath my weight, where I can still post, right? And this is what it would look from the opposite end, my tracks, right? And if you're aware enough, you'd be like, okay, what the heck is that, right? So, there's a different way, and then you see this, a marker is like, oh, that bit of moss ends up on the road. What's going on? That's what the questions you have to ask yourself. What is this telling me, right? So, and now we're onto a more solid ground, which as the snow melts, or if it's a rainier day, makes for easier tracking. So snow, sand, wet sand, slush makes for good tracking. So I'm just taking this minute to kind of, give some ideas or throw some stuff out there. Getting out and getting a little bit of fresh air. I don't know. It's early 2024. I'm just trying to give you some ideas. Some food for thought, as they say.